Well, good afternoon to you. It's Pastor Jerry and Pastor Doug here once again, doing another table talk. My friend here, Pastor Doug, is with us this afternoon. What we're doing is we've been going through the book of Acts. And this weekend I'm preaching on Acts 26. And I'll go through and read several times the chapter as I'm going through the week, preparing the lesson and preparing for the message. And something that really dawned on me, or that kind of lit up when I was reading through this, that you know how there's things that you read and you kind of know it, and you kind of think about it, but then something happens and it just clicks, right? And I was reading through Paul's defense before Agrippa in Acts 26, and he says something here in Acts 26:14. He says, "We all fell to the ground, and I heard a voice saying to me in Aramaic, 'Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads.'" And so, thinking about that whole thing, the goads a goad is a stick that the driver would use to get the ox or get the donkeys to move forward, right? And it's pushing them, it's prodding them, if you will, to get them to move. But you have a driver involved. There's somebody driving the animals. And then donkeys, I think donkeys used to work with donkeys a lot, right? And the donkeys seem to be the ones that kick against the goats a lot, where you're pushing at it and they're kicking back. Can you explain that a little bit from your personal experience?
Well, to put that into a modern form, we would call it spurs. And we even still use the word goad today. Okay. You know, you need to goad that horse along. You need to goad that donkey or whatever. So I had an experience with a donkey when I was 16. This man paid me to fix his donkey, basically. Paid me to fix his donkey. In other words, the donkey would not move forward when somebody sat on the donkey's back. And I think this was a joke in his opinion because donkeys are notorious. So I get this donkey home and I'm like, sure, I can get this donkey to go. So I put my spurs on, I jump on his back, and I just nail him with those spurs. And he kicks both hind legs up in the air and I go over the front. And I do it again. I'm a slow learner, so it took about 5 or 6 tries for me to figure out this is not going to work. Every time I apply that pressure, he's going to apply the same amount of pressure back to me.
Okay.
And so it got to the point where even at 16, I was thinking, okay, this direct, harsh push that I'm trying to do isn't getting me anywhere. The harder I push, the harder he pushes. So I had to start thinking on the same level as him. To come around that, to encourage him and to entice him to move forward and not just bully him into it. Because you get into a bullying match with a donkey, you're going to lose.
That's interesting because you're talking the process of goading, right? Mm-hmm. To get them to go, it's goading.
Push forward.
To push forward. And there's different ways that you can goad. You can either do it forcefully or you can do it more gently.
Right.
And I think in many times that Jesus goads us.
Oh yeah,
gently. But the idea is just like you talked about. You were the rider. You were the driver. You were the one that was commanding and determining where that donkey was going to go. Yeah. And as you look at this, so this is what clicked in when I was reading this, is that when he says, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads." Jesus is the one that's moving him. So this begged a question that kind of came into my head here and came into my heart is, we know that Jesus put part of his deity away or is stayed in heaven while he was here on earth. He couldn't be omnipresent when he was here on earth, right? But we do know that he knew what people were thinking and he knew what was going on. So he had some omniscience going on, right? Now, we don't know specifically the extent of that or anything. But can you imagine this? Paul would have been still with the Jews, the Sanhedrin army with Gamaliel in Jerusalem when Jesus was there.
Yeah.
So Jesus, it's most likely, it's not in Scripture, but it's most likely that Paul would have seen Jesus and heard Jesus when he was in the temple or when he was teaching in Jerusalem, even before we see him in the book of Acts, right? And Paul, I believe that Paul would have been just fine being a Pharisee, being a member of the Sanhedrin. You know, if he made it that far,
Yeah.
But Jesus had a higher calling on his life. And so Jesus would be seeing Paul, and you got to wonder, knowing what Paul was going to do and knowing what he was going to be. And this brought up the question, all of this brings up the question of predestination.
Yeah.
Right? It really comes to the question of predestination.
Scary word.
Yeah, it is.
Scary word.
Everybody's afraid of that word. And to me, I like to keep things simple. It's really about, God being in control and God having a plan for our life and him moving us from place to place to fulfill that plan for our lives. And yet giving us, now there is a tension there between free will and predestination.
Definitely.
That we're just not going to figure it out. We're not going to figure it out as humans. But that tension is there, but God is still moving us in his direction. So you got to wonder if Jesus looked at Paul and says, I know
You're up.
I know the plans that I have for you, that Jeremiah. I know the plans that I have for you. And so I just have a couple scriptures here that I'll throw out there and ask you to comment on them. And this is Romans 8. Now, we talked about Romans 8:28 a lot. All things work together for the good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. But if you go on from there to Romans 8:29, it says, for those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to his image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. And you really see that in the life of Paul. You see him driving him to his knees to justify him, that Paul would receive that justification in his life. Even though Jesus did the work of justification, Paul had to receive that work of justification, which is a whole different topic for another day.
Yeah.
But you see that plan of Jesus in that, and him driving Paul to his knees for that specific thing. Excuse me. And in Ephesians 1:4 and 5, it says, for he chose us in him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in his sight. In love, he predestined us for adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ in accordance with his pleasure and will. So really, it's kind of like back to that donkey. You didn't want to hurt that donkey. You didn't want to harm that donkey. You were going to ride that donkey into a wall. But the donkey had to trust what you were doing with it.
Yeah.
And follow your lead.
And there's a way to do that. And forceful is never the way for us. We can't handle the forceful side of it. Now, Jesus forcefully goaded Paul into it. If he could do it,
yeah,
we just end up messing that up.
Yeah. He does it. It appears to me, at least in my life, that God applies the perfect pressure.
Yeah.
And it's when you're going against it, the pressure becomes more and more firm because he's not going to turn you back. He's going to move you forward. The less pressure he applies when you go along with his plan.
Yes.
The more pressure he gets applied when you go apart from his plan.
That makes me think of, I basically ran from God on my calling into ministry. I did run for a little while. And it finally got to the point where I realized I can run, but eventually I will be on my knees.
Yeah.
Either now or later, but eventually I will be on my knees.
Isn't that amazing? The scripture says that at the name of Jesus, every knee, and it says will bow, not may bow, might bow. It will bow. So at the name of Jesus, every knee will bow. And it's just depending on how much faith we want to put up with before we bow.
There's that saying about snipers, you can run, but you'll just die tired. Well, I feel the same way. You can run from Jesus, but you're just going to kneel. We're tired.
Yeah.
How did you just give in at the time?
That sounds easy, going with the will of Jesus and going with the will of God. It sounds easy in our life, but it's not so easy.
No, it's not.
I think the hardest part is when you have godly, either decision appears to be a godly decision.
Yeah.
That you have to make. And we have to make those decisions in the rest of that.
We do. We have to make that decision. We know that God is pushing us and he's setting it up perfectly, like a line of dominoes. He is setting it up. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. What will my friends say?
Yeah.
Well, what will everybody think of me if I do this? It's our pride jumps in.
Yeah.
And we want to take control. We want to goad ourselves.
Yeah.
It just don't work that way.
Sometimes fear. Sometimes we make those decisions out of fear.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? It's amazing how that happens. And really, when I was reading this and looking at acknowledging that Jesus is the driver and that he's going to be goading us. He's goading us into a higher calling. We determine our own calling in our lives, what we're going to be, right? We want to do this, we do that, we come up with these ideas, I want to do this, we do that. But God always has a higher calling for us. And that may mean that we go someplace else, that may mean that we stay where we are. But that higher calling is how we proclaim Christ, right? And how we serve Christ. Now, I said at the beginning, Paul would have been happy being a Pharisee and being in that line, but his higher calling was not just to proclaim law to the Jews, it was to build the church, to be the apostle to the Gentiles, to be the witness before Roman commanders, thousands, before military leaders, before governors, and even before kings. That's what God had planned for him, and that was that higher calling. And then he's walking in that. Pretty amazing.
I think back to before I did the ministry, I was selling guns. So I was going to gun shows. And the whole time, my mother acts as my conscience. I love it. And so gun shows were big day is Sundays. And so I'm going to the gun show on Sundays, not going to church. And I knew better.
Yeah.
But I'm bargaining with God at this point. I'm like, well, you have church at the gun show. What's to do? They have a little gathering. So I'll just do that and it'll be fine. And it seems like God was just taking things away. I'm going to move that out of your life. I'm giving you nowhere to go but here. This destination is where I want you. You're fighting me. So I'm going to remove all these things and I'm going to force you into this path. And that's exactly what he did. And when I surrendered, when I fell to my knees, it was relief. I had been fighting something that was good for me. That I was meant to do. He had a plan all along. I fought him on it. And then once I gave in, it was so much better.
It's amazing. I had the same experience. I was going to school and I was going for all these different things, thinking I want to do all these different things. And I kept coming back to it. And I wasn't even in church at this time. I was just not in church as an adult and very little church in my life. But for some reason, I kept getting this push. You're supposed to be in ministry. You're supposed to be in the church. You're supposed to be serving God. I don't even know God, you know? And it's exactly what you talked about. He kept taking things out of my life. He's like, no, you're not going to do that. No, you're not going to do that. And then when I finally surrendered to it and said, okay, this is natural.
Yeah.
This is not easy, but this is natural.
Yes.
And this is what God has created to be and created to do.
I'd rather be in a broken church surrounded by broken people, doing God's will than anywhere else in this world.
There you go. Boy, that's a sick thing. It's really not. It's really not. This is the best place to be. And, you know, a church that knows that its people are broken are the best type of church to me.
Definitely.
Could be because we're pastors here. But, you know, a church where everybody acts like they're not broken is usually pretty fake.
Yeah.
And they're not getting out what is standing between them and an authentic relationship with God. But ones that are broken, that's where God's life has to be.
Yeah.
You know, even told Paul when he asked for that thorn to be removed, he said, no. He says, my grace is sufficient. My power is perfect in weakness. Isn't that amazing?
We don't like to hear that. But it's true.
No, we like to think our strength. Our strength is today.
How strong I can be.
Yeah.
As I'm cowered in the corner, crying. I'm real strong.
That's good. Very good. So that's what we had this week. That's the thoughts that I had. So I'll let the pastor close it out here for it.
In my studies, I come across this all the time. And I have to say that I don't struggle with predestination nearly as bad as I struggle with free will. That seems to be the area I struggle the most. And you'll see people arguing all the time over free will theology and predestination. And I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm still discovering things. God clearly does not want me to understand it yet. Maybe in time, maybe never. But enough to know that I'm comfortable with the fact that God has a plan for me in my life, a direction that he wants me to go, and I'm just going to keep doing it. Kind of like the little cars at Six Flags. There's that track.
Yeah, you know where you go.
And I know that I can bounce on that track back and forth, but I know where I'm going, and it's safe. Usually it's safe on that track.
Usually.
But that's where I feel with it. Free will, on the other hand, causes a lot of confliction because for me, I don't feel like I had free will, and I'm afraid of free will. I'm afraid if I had free will, I just mess that up. I would just do things I wasn't supposed to. Because I feel like the first part of my life was me exercising free will unsuccessfully. And then the last part is me getting into Jesus and going, you've got a plan. I'm going to trust that so that I don't have to worry about that anymore. So that's my conflict between the two in my own personal struggle with it. I'm comforted by predestination. Free will is really just free choice.
You know, Paul addressed that. Ironically, he said the proper use of our free will is to align with God's will. Yeah. So to freely turn our will over to God and say, okay, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And really, we see that perfectly in Jesus.
Yeah.
It was Jesus practicing his free will, fulfilling God's will.
We see a lot of the terminology that Jesus uses of being a slave and then being free. Now, I know, and some of you may be watching this video right now with that fear of, I don't want to give up my free lifestyle because being a Christian is full of rules. Well, that's not what Jesus teaches, and that's not what we've experienced. It is freeing. You are a captive to your sin, just as Jesus describes it. Sin enslaves us to do a certain thing, to live a certain way that we will never be able to achieve happiness or have joy through. You have to give up that yoke of sin. You have to embrace Christ, and then you discover true freedom.
Amen. That's good. Very good. So, I'm so excited to talk about this today. This was a good subject.
Good one.
Love being here. I want you to know that we love you, and we're so glad that you're joining us on this video. And we hope that you got something out of it today. And we'll continue to do these as long as the Lord lets us and gives us topics, which I don't think we're going to run out of anything here. And just say that until we're together again, we love you, we're praying for you. God bless you.
Remember, if you've got comments, leave us some. We're anxious to read your comments and discuss your questions. So, until next time, bye.